everyone. Thanks for joining us in the garage. I'm Jeremy Cordo. Peter Clayton's behind the camera. And welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. We're posting this on Facebook, as you know, and it's podcast, the audio anyways, podcast, and you can listen to that anywhere, at any time, any place you get your favourite podcasts from. Pete rang me the other day to tell me that there were, we're both quite surprised, really. Thousands of new people have come to the Facebook page. Now, I don't know whether that's because of the live streaming on the Friday or the Facebook page is helping the live streaming on Friday or vice versa. I've got no idea. But to everyone, and I notice new names coming up all the time, and your comments, thank you. And I'm sure there are people who are watching who don't bother to comment, but I appreciate each and every one of you viewing this little program called the Court of Public Opinion. We were talking yesterday about this new legislation that they want to put through, which I think is at the behest of the trade union movement. I just can't help but believe that the government wouldn't have more on its mind, frankly. But they're talking about the gig economy as if it's sort of a great source of exploitation. You know, I sort of see it as an opportunity for people to make a choice. You know, you can do that sort of work on an app, and you might be working on sort of 3 or 4 different apps and running around. But, you know, when you're young, it's amazing the energy you have and what you can do. I just believe in freedom of choice. But I was thinking about, after our conversation yesterday, I was thinking about a few years ago when in city streets, the streets were full of those, Pete, help me here, were they the bicycle brigade, or were they bicycle couriers?
Yes. Yeah.
There were thousands of them.
Yeah.
Thousands of them. The streets were full. Fast, very fast, sometimes too fast couriers, racing around traffic-clogged city streets of Australia. Traffic wouldn't move, but the couriers could, delivering envelopes and contracts, all sorts of documents, weaving in and out of the traffic. There was nowhere where they couldn't or wouldn't go. They would go up escalators. You'd see somebody in the lift with his bicycle, you know, his helmet on and his envelopes under his arm, delivering to a law firm or an advertising agency or something. Quick, cheap, efficient, bloody hard work. You never see it now. You don't. Now, maybe you know what happened. I suspect that was killed off, successfully killed off by vested interests or trade unions who figured that they were somehow missing out. You see, those people on their bikes, they met and fulfilled a need. And both sides of the deal, both sides exercised their right of freedom of choice and their freedom to make a living that way, or to have their parcels or their envelopes delivered that way. That's what I want to see. Freedom of choice while maintaining road safety and not putting kids particularly in danger, because kids on bikes do take risks. Speaking of bikes, an e-bike Lithium Ion battery has exploded here in Adelaide. I don't know where you're watching this, but it's probably the sort of thing that's happening in your city as well, and your country. House gone. The lot, $400,000 damage apparently. No weight given to the risks involved in electric vehicles. I don't like that. And scant media attention. You know, nothing to see here. Look over there. No, that's not right. There's plenty to see. The police greys to be relocated at Jepp's Cross. I think that's a bad move. And it's all about the knocking down of the buildings that the police barracks have occupied for so long to make way for the Women's and Children's Hospital, the new one. I want to talk to you about that later in the week. The parklands in South Australia are sacrosanct. You know, they're... and I'm not saying they're not important. They are. The parklands, you see, if you don't know Adelaide, you've got the city, the square mile in the city centre, beautifully laid out. Before the bicycle lanes and the tram tracks, it was very wide boulevards and just beautiful. But anyway, that's another story. Then outside the city square mile, you've got the parklands, which are the lungs of Adelaide. Beautifully thought through. Then beyond the parklands, you have the inner suburbs. Then beyond that, you've got more parklands. So it is a very, very quality of life capital. Their priorities are right. So I would not suggest willy-nilly that we do anything with the parklands, but there is a way to make this work for the police greys, not only their convenience, but their effectiveness, and also the preservation people. We'll talk about it later. House prices recovering, up, I think, for the 6th consecutive month. Good news if you're selling your house. Troublesome, as always, if you're looking around to buy. They're having a meeting at the museum in Sydney. Well, it's more like a demonstration than a meeting. A whole lot of activists from the South Pacific have arrived this week to lecture us on their perceived climate problems. This guy, I heard, openly saying that there had been several islands around Tuvalu which had sunk, disappeared. Well, upon checking, which of course the journalist doing the interview on the ABC could have checked as well, that is rubbish, nonsense. Now, why didn't that journalist say something like, I'm sorry, what islands have disappeared? And where? And when? And can you prove it? No, of course they wouldn't do that. Doesn't fit the old ABC narrative. They're all a party to the same pack of lies. It's all about money and reparations and compensations. Look, satellite pictures prove that South Pacific islands are actually growing in size. Can be up to 16% a year. Now, if you want to do something, fellas, Tuvaluans or whatever you are, if you want to do something about the countries that produce the emissions, here's an idea. You go and have a talk to China. Go and have a talk to China. See how far that'll get you. Your island won't disappear, but you might. Be careful. Chris Bowen on the 7:30 report, speaking of the ABC, talks about renewables being the cheapest form of energy production. You know, the mantra is if you repeat a lie often enough, people will believe it. Well, here in the media is one little tiny corner called the Court of Public Opinion in my garage and my podcast and my live streaming on jeremycordeaux.com. Here is one little spot where you will not be presented with rubbish. Well, certainly not in my view. The cheapest form of energy production alternatives, rubbish. If the ABC was on the ball again, and I don't like to write their questions for them, they could have asked this fellow, this minister, to explain why, when South Australia is most dependent upon alternative energy of all the states in Australia, why does South Australia have the most expensive electricity prices in the country? Minister, very good question. If the question had been asked, I would have loved to have heard the answer. But I probably never will, because that's not what the ABC wants to do. No. Australia Post, you would have read, I guess, that they've posted a $200 million loss. And they tell us its mail delivery business is in terminal decline, losing hundreds of millions of dollars a year. I just can't believe that. You know, they have a total mail delivery monopoly. How do you fail when you have a monopoly? There's no country in the world that has a mail delivery problem like this. It goes back to my argument, and I've made it for several years. In fact, we were talking about it during the live stream on Friday from 9 o'clock until 12 on jeremycordeaux.com, that there is no reason why the ABC shouldn't sit down, not the ABC, the Australia Post people should sit down around their table once a month and with their board of directors, and the board of directors is designed to sort of bring together people with various experiences in life and business, and you work through your threats and your possibilities and your opportunities. Why wouldn't they do that? But it's an argument I've made for years. Simply, they have a very good network, a fantastic network. They've got good staff, probably great staff. Australia Post is in a perfect position to set itself up as a national bank. It just must reinvent itself. You can't just sit there in the dust and wonder, what to do next. Your board of directors and your management, a think tank. Look, for God's sake, I shouldn't have to bloody tell you how to do it. Anthony Mundine coming up in a minute with some, Pete, what would you say, disturbing?
Well, it's scandalous.
Yeah, well, Pete and I, and probably you, have suspected for some time that with so many people jumping on the yes bandwagon, that there is more to their embracing the idea than meets the eye. Now, I'm a realist and a pragmatist, and I didn't come down in the last shower. Business, the AFL, the NFL, all these corporates, Qantas, all of these people, I am sure there is a quid pro quo. There is something going on. John Farnham, did he just hand over the voice to the yes promoters? Or did they pay him? To which end, I want you to listen to Anthony Mundine, a very successful footballer and athlete, and later on a great boxer, and a fine Australian. Have a listen to what he is suggesting. And I wish you a happy birthday and a happy wedding anniversary. If it's a day of importance to you, well, every day is important, isn't it, for God's sake? Every day. September 5, on this day in 1698, we do go back a while, 1698, Russian Tsar Peter the Great I'm sorry to tell you this, Pete, he imposes a tax on beards. Hey, Jim, Chalmers could possibly come up with that. You'd make a quid with taxing beards, wouldn't you? No stone unturned. I don't know how long it lasted, but it was certainly there in 1698. German Christine Hart patents the first modern brazier in 1889. Now, who was it who was the film star I must look that up.
The film star.
The film star, I think it wasn't Gina Lollobrigida. No. It was, I'll look it up. But I heard that there was somebody in Hollywood who came up with the modern bra. Maybe this was a forerunner of it. It's an interesting subject, though, Pete.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, I'll look at that for tomorrow. 1885, the first gasoline pump is delivered to gasoline dealer F.T. Wayne Limited. 1885. Huckleberry Hound Show by Hanna-Barbera featuring Yogi Berra premieres on the US television networks 1958 on this day. Freddie Mercury, the British singer and songwriter, Queen. 1946, he was born in Stone Town, Zimbabwe. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't Stone Town, Zimbabwe, it was Zanzibar. He died in 1991. American actor John Travolta, 37, weds American actress Kelly Preston, 28, at the Hotel Paris in France. Jim Henson's Puppet Show premieres on television. Mia Farrow was a guest star this day, 1976. Michael Keaton, the American actor. Beetlejuice, Batman, born Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 1951. The Great Fire of London ends, leaving 13,200 houses destroyed and 8 people dead. 1666 was the year. I would have thought it would have killed more people. It would have been a very densely populated city, London, back then. The first colour video recording on magnetic tape was presented, Charlotte, North Carolina. 1958. 1997 on this day, Mother Teresa, Albanian-born Indian nun, founder of the Missionaries of Charity, Nobel Prize winner. 1979 she won that, dies of cardiac arrest, the age of 97. I think she's been made a saint, though, hasn't she? It was a lengthy process. You have to be beatified, and it's a process. It's a performance, but I'm sure that Mother Teresa will get there. Al Stewart, British folk singer, rock singer. Year of the Cat, 1945, was born. 1905, prominent men meet in Sydney at the Australia Hotel. God, I remember the Australia Hotel. Beautiful hotel in Castlereagh Street, near Martin Place. I don't think it's still there. They knocked down a lot of lovely old buildings in Sydney. Anyway, they got together, these businessmen, to found the National Defence League, fueled by a fear of Japan after its victory over Russia. God, that was back in 1905. Wow. 1929, on this day, Bob Newhart, American comedian, The Bob Newhart Show, The Big Bang Theory, born in Oak Park, Illinois. 1929, one more. Anwar Sadat. Begin and Jimmy Carter began their Egypt-Israel peace conference in Camp David on this day in 1978. I am quite convinced the Middle East will never have peace. I don't know what is wrong with those people. I mean, they're probably wonderfully nationalistic and enthusiastic about their race and their religion and everything, but what's the point if you blow each other up all the time? Oh, God. Anyway, it is a problem, the Middle East. Now, back to our problem. Anthony Mundine would like to enlighten us on some of the things he believes about this promotion of the yes vote.
Caroline, you're reporting today, Anthony Mundine, a man who sort of was Lydia Thorpe before Lydia Thorpe about many Indigenous issues. He's a hard no, in part because of her position about sovereignty, but then he'll turn around and say many of the things that, say, Jacinta Price would have to say. Interesting chat.
Very interesting. And I think, this is going to be, to use a boxing pun, a real knockout blow for the Yes campaign.
Well done.
I do think having someone as high profile, I hear those groans, as high profile, an Indigenous athlete, a legend in boxing and NRL, coming out against this referendum is going to be very powerful, because I don't think that he said what a lot of people thought he would say on this. They might assume he would take a progressive yes position because it's good for his mob, but actually he does take, and he's not a Lydia Thorpe supporter, I should add, but he does agree with her on his fears about what it will do for the rights of Indigenous people and sovereignty. It's something the government has dismissed, I should make clear. But also he says we already have senators and ministers in Parliament who are Indigenous. Why do we need this voice? And the people who, he's very sceptical about people who, even Indigenous Australians who accept $15,000 grants from the Yes campaign to promote the vote, and sports stars like Adam Goodes and Shaquille O'Neal.
Well, here in part is what he told Caroline a bit earlier today. Roll the tape.
Why are you telling people to vote no?
Basically, it's a takeover. They want to take our sovereignty, so we fall under their jurisdiction as British subjects. So once our sovereignty is ceded, then we will have no power. Why the hell do we need a voice? We've got people in Parliament, we've got senators, we're already making our voices heard.
The whole report up at skynews.com.au right now. Nicholas is all in Yes man. I'm going to say I've started to notice a little pep in the step of the Yes people, because they think that the money's about to kick in, the campaign tactics are about to kick in. We know that the polls haven't quite kicked in, but are you hearing something from deep inside Yes world that they've got a rabbit to pull out of the hat here?
No, I think people on the yes side of the debate know that it's going to be hard work. They know that in Australia we've had 44 votes on referendums and only 8 of them have succeeded. And every one that's succeeded has had both sides of politics advocating for yes. So the yes side has got a hard job in front of it, but it's one that can be won because the yes side of the vote has got history on its side and has got the better argument, I think. And look, I don't think Warren Mundine coming out today saying esports no is a knockout blow at all. I mean, anyone who's part of a family or sat around at a Christmas lunch knows that there's going to be differences of views in any family and amongst any mob. And so it's not surprising some Aborigines.
You might want to get the wrong right.
Aborigines who are.
You got the wrong Mundine.
They're all the same.
So there are some Aboriginal people coming out saying they don't support it, but the significant, vast majority do, because it's about giving Aboriginal people a fair go in this
300
country,
people,
which they've missed out on for too long.
Yeah, all right. Well, Steve, also, what is really interesting here is that we know that the intensity on both sides is deep. There's a certain section of people, and I was speaking to a very prominent Australian today who was partially like, you know why I'm enjoying you at the moment? Because you don't talk about this all day, every day. So forgive me for breaking the rule right now. It feels like who's being played for is compulsory voter land, and that's going to be about the vibe. You're going to have all of the push which is going to be there financially. How are you going to handle the next 7 weeks? Because it's going to go on and on and on and on.
Yeah, look, welcome back to the Man Cave, by the way. I hope I left it in good shape for you. Caroline, congratulations on that interview. I thought that Anthony Mundine today, I didn't quite follow his sovereignty argument, but the rest of what he said, I think, rings true. Now, a lot of people, and you would remember this, Paul, that Mundine's boxing gym was always located in Redfern. And that guy did a hell of a lot for disadvantaged Indigenous people who lived in Redfern in the bad old days of Redfern. And I can remember going down and wandering around with the then New South Wales
Police Minister Michael Costa, and the back lanes of Redfern were knee-deep in heroin needles. So there were a lot of people who needed a lot of help there. So Mundine, you might see him as a bit of a loose cannon, but Mundine's worked in that community. He knows what Indigenous people who are in trouble need, and I think him speaking out today was a fantastic thing to do, and congratulations on you. And look, Mundine's always an honest guy. You might not always agree with him, but he knows a lot more about disadvantaged Indigenous people than I do.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot to talk about come Friday when we're live streaming, 3 hours. I'd like your opinion on all of that. And who else have we got? Tomorrow, Jacinta Price is coming on our posting.
Yes, a very interesting presentation by her.
Well, everything she does, I think, is very good and very worthwhile listening to, as was indeed Anthony Mundine. Thank you very much for viewing the Court of Public Opinion, ladies and gentlemen. Pete and I will be back tomorrow. Believe in yourself. Thank you for viewing. And goodbye for now.